Oh my god, Tekken 8 is coming this month. After that Persona 3 Reload, we're getting a lot of games. Skull and Bones, oh my god. Oh, I don't have any GPU. But I only have $200. Let's try to find something online. An RX 6600? Should I buy it? Or should I not?
2,000 years later.
I hope somebody could help me. Now, if you're one of these people who happens to have only $200 in his pocket and you want to buy a GPU in today's market in 2024, I'm going to try to help you guys in this video. And it's already 2024. Now, it's almost like more than 2 years since the GPU was launched, and it was launched as a mid-range GPU for 1080p gaming, and it performed really well when it came out. Now, it's already been 2 years, and the GPU is going very cheap nowadays. As you can see online, it's like close to $200 and also lesser than that, I would say, in some instances. Now, if you happen to have this GPU or you are already looking to buy it, I'm going to try to help you guys in this video. Now, in order to answer this question once and for all for you guys, that if you should buy this GPU or not, I went through heaps of benchmarks in this video. For the making of this video, I went from game to game in 2023. Each game that came out in a descending order from January till December, I went through every game and I tried to just make out that how this GPU is gonna stack up for you guys in 2024. Now, the games I went through for this video were actually the games that I thought to be most intensive, or thought to be the games that were not performing really well or were unoptimized at the time of their launch. I just benchmarked those games on this GPU, and the test system that I used was actually Ryzen 5 3600 and 16GB of DDR4 memory, because still those that CPU is quite capable of running this kind of GPU. One more thing, guys, before we head into the benchmarks, I actually also tested many of these games, or actually the games that allowed it, on LukeFZ FSR3 mod, which actually converts DLSS or FSR2 in a game to FSR3. Those results are gonna come at the end of the video also, so I will try to leave the timestamps at the bottom in the description for you guys to check it out. And just if you want to know only the results for FSR3 mod, then you can go ahead and also check out in that graph that I will show you guys. Alright guys, so the first game that actually launched in 2023 was actually Forspoken, and this game actually launched in a very bad state. I've got the results right here, and it's been a very bad journey actually. It's been a year since the game has launched, and they've got many patches to actually patch the game. Still, it's not in a very good state. Now, let me show you the results here at ultra settings and without any FSR3 and stuff, only the ultra preset. We're getting about 32 FPS average. I've just disabled motion blur and depth of field and stuff, and nothing else is changed in these settings. Textures are to the maximum because the game can handle it. Actually, there were many starters in the game, and it was basically unplayable at these settings. So I enabled FSR3 on quality after that, and FPS went to 40 FPS average, which is playable, but I would say that it's still not very good. For a game like Forspoken, there is a lot of shimmeriness and stuff in the image also, even on native resolution, and when you enable FSR3, it becomes really bad for the image quality. So after I enabled FSR3 of frame generation, the FPS went to 68 FPS. Which was good, but now the input lag is also an issue, because this introduces actually somewhat of an input lag in the game, and it becomes a little bit hard to play. If you've got a controller, then you can use that, but otherwise the game is still, I would say, not very good optimized. After I went to high preset, I still saw the same results. FPS became, for the native resolution, it came at 33 FPS average, FSR3 on quality at 42, and for FSR3 quality and frame generation, I was at 70 FPS average. So not that much of an increase from ultra to high preset. And now when I enabled low preset, then we got some increases here. We get 45 FPS average on low preset, native that is, and we get FSR3 quality at 58 FPS average, and with FSR3 frame generation we get 100 FPS average. Now, these results actually show that this game is still not very good optimized. There are still some issues with stuttering and stuff, as you might see in the video that is playing right besides me. The game is not playing very good still, and I don't know if they're gonna do anything with this game now, but after they just enable FSR3 in this game, I think they've stopped patching the game. So let's get into the next one. Now next up in February, at the start of February, we got Deliver Us Mars, which is one of the games that had actually many options for ray tracing. Although the textures weren't looking very good for this game, but it had some options for ray tracing that were really amazing to look at. Now I tried to enable those settings in this game's menu, but what happened was when I tried to enable them, they just hogged the game. Like my game went to like 10 FPS and it wouldn't just go further. I would get crashes and stuff, so I didn't actually use those settings while testing this game, and I only tested it at ultra settings. So what happened was at ultra settings we got about 86 FPS average. We got some stutters here and there, but 1% and 0.1% lows were pretty good. I think this game requires a lot of VRAM, so I would recommend if you guys want to use ultra settings, you should be actually on 8GB at least. You should be actually using ultra settings only and not any ray tracing options. All right, let's get into the next game. Alright guys, so next up we got an interesting game which was very hyped in 2023, and that was Hogwarts Legacy. Now at ultra settings we got about 49 FPS average, but still the stutters are still there, and whenever you go to Hogsmeade, for my benchmark run I went from outside Hogsmeade, inside Hogsmeade, and then outside on a broom, just a stroll with a broom up the forest, and I got about 49 FPS average with frame generation, which I applied here with LukeFZ's mod. I get about 105 FPS average. These are all at ultra settings without any ray tracing options enabled, and FSR2 on quality without any frame generation natively. Like the basic games option there, you get 58 FPS average. Stutters are still there and they need to improve this game. I've installed all of these games on an SSD, and that is not an issue in this video. If you guys know that SSDs are recommended for 2023 games, and in 2024 I think this is going to be a compulsory thing. So if you guys are making a system these days, I would seriously recommend to get a higher capacity SSD in order to install many games, because the games that are going to come out in 2024 are also going to be really intensive and gonna cost you a lot of storage space. Next up we had Sons of the Forest, and actually this was a really good surprise for me, because when this game actually launched, there were many issues with the game, and it was really in early access at that time, so it was not running really well. But now it was a really good surprise that this game performed really well. At native resolution at ultra settings with ultra preset, we got about 72 FPS average, and when enabled FSR2 on quality, it went to about 83. So it was a sizable bump in performance, but the game performed really well now. There were no huge stutters, and as you can see in the gameplay, I think it's playing right now, it performed really well. The frame time graph was very smooth. So the game is going really well. They're doing really well with the optimization right now, and you can easily use ultra settings for this game on your RX 6600 if you want to buy it. Alright guys, so the next up we had Resident Evil 4 Remake, which came out in March in 2023, and at native resolution at ultra settings, I just adjusted some settings. I think I adjusted corpses setting to few, and that actually netted us at about 76 FPS average at native resolution. When I enabled FSR2, it went at about 85 FPS average. So you can easily play this game at more than ultra settings, I would say. The textures were actually adjusted at high 3 GB, because when I enabled other settings, the game would actually go ahead and start stuttering because of the VRAM being fully pegged. So I adjusted those at high 3 GB, and these are the results for that. So I would seriously recommend you guys to use those settings and then try the game yourself. Exactly one more thing guys, in Resident Evil 4 Remake actually, I tried to use FSR3, but LukeFZ's mod, but it didn't run, and the game actually would crash whenever I tried to use it. I spent a lot of time with it, but it actually didn't run. So yeah, that's that. Alright guys, so the next up we had The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, and this game was actually kind of weird for me, because when I tried to use texture streaming rate more than normal, the game would actually lag a lot. All of the other settings that I tried were adjusted at ultra, maxed out, but when I tried to use texture streaming rate more than normal, the game would actually stutter. So I used normal texture streaming rate, and there were a lot of fluctuations actually with this game. When I actually tried to go inside the areas, the FPS would be like 15 FPS more, but outside on the vegetation and stuff, FPS would be 15 FPS lesser than that. So an average of, I tested outside the area and I got about 35 FPS average when testing on the vegetation and stuff outside, and inside I would get like close to 50 FPS. When I enabled FSR2, you got about 55 FPS average outside, and when you go inside in areas, you get about like 10 FPS more. About I didn't actually record that, but it was actually like 60 to 65 FPS average when you're inside the areas with FSR2. I also actually used in this scenario, I went ahead and also used FSR3 in this game, and it ran pretty well, and there were no issues actually. The game actually ran really amazingly. The HUD, this game doesn't have much HUD elements, so those were not a distraction, because you know with LukeFZ's mod you get some distractions with the HUD elements. Now in the same area, in the vegetation and stuff, you get about 82 FPS average in The Last of Us Part 1 with FSR3 LukeFZ's mod. So next up we have Ghostwire Tokyo, which actually launched in a pretty bad state. Also the game lagged pretty bad when it launched. So I have the results right here actually, and this time the game is pretty improved, I would say. This time the game is running really well. At native even, I'm getting about 33 FPS average, and when I'm going ahead and enabling FSR2 on quality, I'm getting at about 56 FPS average, which is really good. And there are still some stutters, so but I would say that those are actually due to VRAM, because in this game I actually used the maximum settings possible, with only the level streaming distance to 1 and not 2. The other settings were also maximum, and ray tracing was also turned to the maximum. All of the ray tracing settings were at high, so this was running really well to my surprise. I also used FSR3 in this game, and that was also a surprise. It increased the FPS a lot. At the end of the results, with FSR3 on quality with frame generation, it went to 83 FPS average, which is really good from 56 FPS average. So yeah, these were really amazing results from this game. Alright guys, next up we have Starfield, which was also a much anticipated game for 2023. Now this game got about 45 FPS average on ultra, maxed out everything to the maximum at 100% resolution scaling. Nothing applied to the game. At native resolution it got at about 45 FPS average, which is a very good showing for Starfield actually, and it ran very good. There were not much stutters in the game, and it was really smooth. On FSR2 at 67% resolution scaling, we get about 54 FPS average, about 9 FPS increase from that. And with FSR3 LukeFZ's mod, we get 95 FPS average. Although with LukeFZ's mod in this game, the screen HUD elements are really bad and they become really ghosty and stuff. Alright, you get the idea. So that is up to you guys if you guys want to use this or not. Alright guys, next up we have Cyberpunk 2077, which got a Phantom Liberty expansion this year. In September, I think, last days of September. And at native resolution, I got about 50 FPS average, which is a really good showing. There were not much stutters and stuff, so the game was pretty smooth. With FSR2 on quality, it got about 66 FPS average, which was pretty good also. And with FSR3 LukeFZ's mod, it got about 117. The same story like Starfield, this game also had a really bad shimmers on the HUD elements with FSR3 enabled, and so your mileage may vary with this if you guys want to use FSR3 in this game. Still a very good showing, and on RX 6600 this game is also performing really well. Alright guys, next up we have Assassin's Creed Mirage, which actually came on October 5th, and this was a really well optimized game at that time also, so these results are not going to be a surprise for you guys. So at native resolution we got about 55 FPS average, which was really good at ultra maxed out settings, that is. With FSR2, we got about 70 FPS average, which was also very good. And with FSR3 LukeFZ's mod, we got 128 FPS average, which is really good. Like, you can play it at a high refresh rate monitor, and although it's not required, but you can actually do it with a 144 Hz monitor. So yeah, 128 FPS average with FSR3 quality, and that is really good showing. So let's get into the next game. Next up we have the most anticipated game of 2023, and that was Alan Wake 2. This game was really good looking. It had path tracing, ray tracing and everything, but of course we couldn't test it on our GPU. So I tested it on native resolution with high preset, and actually at native resolution we got 35 FPS average. Now at this point many gamers were like, if their GPUs are actually not gonna be very good for 2024 games. So at this point we're getting close to 35 FPS average at high preset. So this looks like if a game is more intensive than Alan Wake 2, then we could get this lower than 30 FPS. But still, I enabled FSR2 here and FPS went up to 55 FPS average. So very good to the upscalers actually. And FSR3 LukeFZ mod got us to about 100 FPS average with frame generation, that is. Now if you guys don't have any issues with frame generation, you can actually use this FSR3 LukeFZ mod and go ahead and get 100 FPS, which is pretty good. And input lag at 100 FPS was not very bad. It was manageable and it performed really well in my opinion. So the last game for the year 2023 was actually Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, which was significant because this game had actually got FSR3 in the game and by the developers implemented in it. And I tested the game on many settings for this one because at ultra settings the results were not very good. At ultra settings at native resolution we got about 29 FPS average, which is not very good for playing a first-person game in 2023. So I enabled FSR3 ultra quality afterwards and it increased the FPS to 33 FPS average, which was good but still not very significant. I enabled frame generation. The FPS went to 54 FPS average, which was playable, but still the input lag would bother many people. Afterwards, I enabled FSR3 on quality because I thought the image might look not that bad compared to native resolution. But I got about 38 FPS average and the image started to look a little bit blurry. With frame generation, I get 66 FPS average on ultra settings. So I thought to myself that I should be using other options here too, because to give you guys a better look at it, I enabled medium settings and at medium settings, I got about 44 FPS average. Afterwards, I went to low settings, lowest possible, not the lowest possible, but actually the low preset in the game. I got native 49 FPS average, and when I enabled FSR3 on ultra quality without frame generation, I got 54 FPS average. So if you guys don't like to use frame generation in games and it makes your input lag higher, then you can use low settings in this game. Now this is actually an indication that at the end of 2023 we got some games that actually started using GPUs more, and we got very bad results on native resolution for this game. So we are going to base our answers on all of these results, and yeah, these were the benchmarks. I'm also going to include some of the other games that I tested in the whole year, and I'm going to compile a page for you which you can see right now on the screen, and you guys can see all of the results. You can pause this video right here and see the results for all of the other games. And if you guys want to play any game, you guys should be able to see that what FPS and what kind of resolution and stuff you'd be able to play them on. These tests, all of them are actually run at 1080p resolution. So yeah, that's that. And 1080p is one of the adequate resolutions, I would say, for RX 6600 still, at least right now at the end of 2023 and at the start of 2024, we could say that. I also have tested a lot of games like Fortnite and Tekken 8 and stuff on my channel, so I'm also going to include those results here. Now as you guys saw these benchmark runs, you get pretty significant and good results with this GPU still, and also in very demanding games like Alan Wake 2 and Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, if you use upscalers, that is at 1080p and maximum settings also in some scenarios. So I would say that RX 6600 is still a very good buy if you could buy it at $200. Because at $200 you've got NVIDIA GTX 1650 Super, which is going these days close to like 180 rupees. You could get that, but at $200 NVIDIA's not got a GPU that could actually compete with RX 6600. So I would say that this GPU is really good in performance if you could get it at $200. Also at 210, I would say it's really good if you could get an RTX 2060, which I think is going for $260 to $270 these days. And it's not very good buy compared to RX 6600, which saves you money, gives you better performance, and yeah, so I think that gives you an idea of where you should be spending your money these days. I'm not an advocate, I'm not sponsored by AMD in any way, shape or form. I'm just telling you guys to save your money and get the best GPU possible for yourself. Alright guys, so that does it for today's video. I will see you all in the next one. If you liked it, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, peace out.